no.
Okay.
I would make it mandatory that every student is involved in a club, activity, organization, athletic team, because when students are invested, they do better in their academic classes.
What is one thing you would change about Westerville High School? Anything?
Size. It's too big. It's getting too big.
I think sometimes I would change if I could get into the minds of all of our kids and get a sense of across the board pride in who they are and being a Blackhawk. I think that could change what's going on here culturally all the time.
You know, what we really could use is either a freshman campus or another building.
I think from an activity standpoint, I would love for us to have a broadcasting class.
I wish we had more electives in social studies. I wish we could break down like history, do just World War II or just do Civil War. I wish we had many more specific topics because I think it would be interesting. But the problem is you may not have enough students to take it to justify it.
I know that we've had kids that are interested in things, oh gosh, I'm just thinking about you and your background, you know, from a theater background all the way to some very specific science content. But once again, you know, then it goes back to how many kids are interested in that. Can there be a class? Is there the resource to have it?
Yeah, I think some of the technical courses, whether that be electronics, hands-on audio in the music area, or we've offered more art classes that are in the digital means, but also those classes where students can make a career out of it right out of high school.
Some of the AP class, honors classes, that's a load. And then the idea is though to prepare them for college. So I think in college, if you're going to ask, you're going to have time all the time to finish your work, you're going to be pressed for time in college.
I think that they probably receive the right amount, but they feel that it's too much.
There are teachers that are willing to, if it absolutely is undoable and cannot be done, there are staff that will work and accommodate and try and help that student.
I'd say an hour, and that is just a guess.
If I was going to do an average, I would go a half hour to an hour.
I'd probably say about 2.5 hours.
I would say on average you're looking between an hour and a half and 4 hours.
You know, I am very active in the world of Twitter, and so when I tweet things out, oftentimes it's late at night, 11 p.m., sometimes even midnight, and there are multiple times something gets favorited or retweeted.
I would say they probably have between 2 and 5 hours of free time in the evenings.
I think a lot of kids fill their time up with extracurriculars. If you're an athlete, you don't have a ton of time. School ends, you go to practice, or you have a game, and that fills up your entire evening. If you're not involved in that stuff, you have a lot of free time, and you fill it sometimes with unproductive choices.
If they're not in athletics, they should have 2 to 3 hours. If you're in athletics, none.
None.
Or an activity club that you're in session. Probably none. The language is still, I think, a problem. I see that more than anything else.
The language and the way people talk to each other, I guess for me, when I walk down the hallway, that's the one thing if I just am so alert or aware of it. Once again, it's not everybody, but there are times where you sort of hear conversations between two people and you're like, wow, that's really mean.
I mean, I'm not a fan of swearing, and you can't sometimes even teach a class without hearing it in the halls or even in your classroom.
I mean, you're obviously not going to see PDA with staff or anything, but...
No, but wouldn't that be hilarious? Like, what if the kids had to watch that? Like, we have married couples here. You know, if you take those students that are like kissing in the hallway and we're like, okay, what if these two married teachers did that? You would be grossed out. I mean, the school has grown so much over the last 10 years. I mean, even since I came, this is my 4th year, and the number of kids we have increased just in 4 years. It also changes the parking situation. You have a lot of kids, and it's not even kids, you have a lot of people that have to get into this building every single day. It would be awesome if we had more parking. And I think that's not just students, I think that would be for football games. I think that would be for concerts and, the musical. Like, it would be great.
On average, well, you're talking about 13, 14-hour workday minimum.
Sometime between 11 and 2 a.m.
You're asking me how much time after work? An hour.
I think while I have this cell phone that comes with my district email, it's 24/7.
Do you think we should even have final exams?
No.
I think there's a place for a final assessment, final exams and final exams week. I think that's up for debate.
I think finals are important. I don't think they need to be structured how they currently are.
I think you can have an end of semester test that would count as a final. I don't believe we need to have a completely separate schedule and take students out of all of a sudden being used to completing work within 50 minutes of class and now almost doubling that amount of time and doing a long sit-down test.
I think teachers can still give a final assessment, but I don't necessarily think the schedule that we currently have in place is best for kids. I think we lose out on a lot of instruction time.
But I think the problem with finals exams is you've been tested on the material before. I don't know how much students actually study for it. You weighted a high percentage. They've already been tested on it. You got to go back to the beginning of the semester. I mean, maybe if you're going from a math class to a math class where that's really where it's essential that you retain that. But the problem with it, is it just rote memorization anyway? If something's rote memorization, they're going to forget it after that test again too. Yeah, for some they can. For the students who actually care and try and who know it's going to impact their grade, absolutely.
Do I think they're too stressful? I think it can depend on if, a grade is dependent on that score of the final. I think then it can get extremely stressful.
I think they can be. I think those students that take their education seriously or are in upper level classes where a lot is expected of them and they expect a lot of themselves, that can be a particularly stressful situation. What does a grade mean? Does a grade mean compliance or does a grade mean understanding of content? I don't think the grading scale is unfair. I think the discrepancies between teachers and departments or even teachers within departments is unfair. And it's hard for students to have clear expectations when their grading scale is not consistent or the way that they're graded is not consistent from period to period to period.
Homework should be an effort grade, and a test or a project should be the assessment grade, so those are going to be weighted more heavily.
So when you have that assessment and that 40-minute homework assignment that's only worth 10%, that practice is intended to get you ready for that assessment.
I personally believe that a grade should mean understanding of content. Displaying an ID is completely within expectations for the staff and the students, and that it helps keep our building safe.
The key is, if a kid's walking down the hallway, we want to make sure that they're safe. So if there's someone in the building that isn't supposed to be here, they wouldn't have an ID. That's the whole idea, to try and identify or keep kids safe because they're supposed to be here away from folks that aren't supposed to be here, and they obviously wouldn't be identified.
I think it's fair. I'm supposed to wear my ID every day. I got busted twice last year by Administrator Scott for not wearing my ID. I got yelled at in the principal's office. So I wear an ID. You wear an ID when you go to a job. Wearing ID is not a big deal. They let you have it on a backpack.
It's a state mandated, so it doesn't matter what I think.
If we're going to get the tests and we're going to get the results and we're going to get the data and we're able to use it in a way that can benefit instruction, yes.
A reasonable amount of statewide testing is reasonable. I think once it gets to be you're taking 2 days off for this test and 4 days off for that test, I think that can be excessive.
My initial, in general, I'd say probably don't like it. I don't like the way it's administered. I think we're taking up a lot of class time and school time. We've had problems here administering it with the technology. Many states are against the PARCC test being just outdated and archaic. We seem to be jumping on the PARCC test a little bit too late. I don't think it's going to be around all that long.
Can a teacher inspire and make you totally change your way of thinking and get really invested? 100%. There are definitely teachers that can do that.
I don't think it's too much hard work or difficult work. I think it's lack of motivation and lack of attendance.
Well, he's got great players. That's why we're winning. Great players.